Hiss and moo.
The Incredible Adventures of Van Helsing Final Cut. When you finish spelling the name of this game, you may realize it's already over. I know that it's not a good start to criticize the title, but why not simply calling it Van Helsing? Instead, this feels like a title of an edgy emo song from 15 years ago. However, despite its shortcomings and lack of continuous online support from the developers, it's still a fun time killer that does not try so hard to be a Diablo clone or a competitor to any other hardcore RPG. In short, yes, it is worth playing, but not buying for the full price, as despite being released in 2015, it's somehow being sold for €45 nowadays. Luckily, I managed to grab it on sales, and I never regretted that decision. First and foremost, for the sake of context, the Final Cut includes 3 parts of Van Helsing games, first released in 2013, second in 2014 and third in 2015, with consequent compilation to the Final Cut. And the biggest drawback of this release approach is that 3 games are interconnected in continuing story and character development. This is not the approach I like, and I'll explain later why, but it's comfortable to play if you want to experience the story with just one build. So we start with the screen that we need to register an account for online play, because otherwise we will lose a lot of features. But when we do that, we see a notification that the online servers are no more, and it's officially said, never mind, just play offline. Why nobody fixed this with a small patch and made the game completely offline without clicking the offline play button upon every launch? Nobody knows, but it does show the devs' attitude towards the players. We're required to create our Van Helsing, and here I honestly admire how the game tries to offer a bit of variety to the cliché choices of RPG characters like a melee knight, a melee rogue, a hunter and a mage. They added an exoskeleton and a doom guy, pretty unique and innovative indeed. But I'd rather start with playing a traditional concept of Van Helsing, being a hunter with a gun and supporting devices. And we begin. Turns out we are tasked traveling to Bargova and investigate what's happening there. And we do that with our trusty companion, a ghost of former Bargovian nobility, Katerina. She is a great addition to the story and to the gameplay, especially in terms of interactions between her and Van Helsing.
I won't let in any dangerous fiends on my watch. No, sir.
How dare you? I'm going to tear you apart, and then I'll teach you some manners.
No, I didn't mean you, my lady. The undead nobility of Borgova are always welcome to haunt here.
While the rest of the characters feel either overly cliché and bland or obnoxiously absurd, these two are really greatly voiced and played, and their dynamic in cooperating and doing quests is one of the main things that kept me playing till the end. Because the first part of the game was actually awesome. It has its logical start with the introduction in the local village of Markovna, with a number of interesting quests like escorting local peasants through the forest or defending the village from the monsters. It has a respective development with the local boss enemy being not really the enemy and sharing knowledge about some greater evil. Turns out, this greater evil is the mad scientist, terrorizing Bargova with his machines and devices, and we're tasked to get rid of him. It's a simple story, but it worked for this part of the game, but afterwards it all started becoming more and more boring. Story-wise, in the second part of the game we fight the Bargovian general, who used the former scientist's developments to dominate the region with disastrous technologies. And in the final, we are required to defeat the demon, who helped us defeat the general in the second part. While these are also widely used approaches in storytelling for action RPGs, both they felt like repetitions of the first, but worse. There were no direct connection or meaningful interaction between the main villains and main characters, therefore there was little to no motivation to beat them. You know how every continuation of the franchise makes the protagonist weaker with a new villain? Like in every old God of War game, Kratos needs to collect his powers again and again? Or how Shepard almost dies in Mass Effect 2 to become a new person and fight new evils? This simple but effective story trick does not also provide the new players with an opportunity to play without knowing the previous events, but also helps balancing the gameplay difficulty-wise. In Van Helsing, you build your character in a rather balanced manner, with attributing level up points to your three main stats: traditional constitution, dexterity and intelligence, along with the skills you choose to fight with. For my gunslinger build, I've just maximized dex, with slightly upgrading con and developing two main abilities to shoot with. And while simple shooting and ricochet shots worked in the first section of the game, they became boring later pretty fast. The development of skill tree leaves a lot to be desired, as with each new upgrade on the skill wheel, you get basically the same skill, but with a minor change. For example, the final version of the basic shot is the sniper shot that deals a lot of damage if you charge it long enough. The scatter shot just keeps on being the scatter shot, but it affects wider crowds of enemies. The skills themselves are rather lacking innovation and interesting progression. For the gunslinger, it has the ice shot, poison shot, summoning of bots, evasive skill and aforementioned burst shots and sniper shots. And while I'm a huge supporter of less is more when it comes to skills, they felt less satisfying to perform and lacked impactful animations and sounds. So I've stuck with burst shots as they exploded brightly and sounded the most appealing to me. Luckily, the respec is easy and not that expensive. With balancing, the later levels just featured the enemies with bigger health pools, and your task was only to drop or craft a powerful enough weapon to chip from their HP pools a bit faster. But, once again, battle-to-battle experience was more than satisfying. It's not like I'm hating the gameplay, I just wish the developers could have just made one game, and the next chapters were bigger, greater and more modern in terms of gameplay. What I hated though is the side activities that are oftentimes non-skippable. Tower defense missions, luckily they were short and the loot was rather rewarding. The Chimera mechanic that was supposed to provide additional loot passively never provided any item of worth. The hideout army management was also just a currency sink for me, because I never seen any benefit from any of those. I assume that these mechanics were left from the days of online functionality and were not removed or somehow adjusted for the offline play, and that kinda sucks. At the same time, I like the overall graphical aesthetic of the game and its overall artistic vibes. Not many games succeed making the steampunk designs appealing and interesting, but Van Helsing did. The industrial levels of Borgova masterfully balanced the open areas of Eastern European forests, mountains, caves, and even some illusory fantastic levels. I do not really care when they were recycled or repeated, as the overall variation of level designs is more than decent to my eyes. The same goes to the enemy designs and the monster variations that look differently, behave differently and fight differently. What cannot be said about the boss fights? I mean, they are so bland and uninspiring that they cannot be considered spoilers. Second part's boss fight is just the grind of enemies until the boss dies from cringe. Final boss is 3 dragons with a lot of backup dances for them to even stand a chance against my overleveled character and Katarina. So, overall experience with Van Helsing in its current state is rather mixed. It has the core gameplay of looter-shooter and character builder, so if you're going for the grind, you'll have a great time. The story is mediocre, but the main characters are charming and memorable, especially Katarina in her continuous teasing and acting as a spoiled noble woman rather than a dangerous ghost. The additional Easter eggs and fun distractions like talking cows, references to other pieces of media in video games also brings charm to the game, but its problems are the balancing, as you'll find yourself fighting HP pools more often and scraping every additional DPS from the weapon to progress faster. The skills and their animations with feedbacks are objectively dated and not in a nostalgic way, but they work in both melee and ranged characters. The looks are unique, and despite repetitions of caves and slums, they are greatly looking even nowadays. But I'd rather have 3 different games with 3 different stories and 3 different approaches to character building with the same level of main character's voice acting and relations, combined with upgraded skills with every iteration. Once again, it may seem like I'm hating the game, but it's not. I am more disappointed with the developers' lack of attention to it, and their lack of desire to make it online and updated once again, especially with obviously growing interest to the genre stimulated by the bigger titles. Who knows, maybe we see something from them in the future, but as of now, wait for a discount. And a big one.